Shush. Today, guys, we are going to look at antiderivatives of trig functions. So, before we look at that, if I told you guys, that y equaled sine x squared, and I differentiated it, if I found y dash, one after whatever the last one we were on was. If I was to differentiate that, what happens to sine when you differentiate it? It becomes positive cos. So that would be cos x squared. What do I do with the inside of a bracket when I'm differentiating? Everything what? This is a chain rule, isn't it? I have an inside function x squared, I have an outside function sine. My inside function with chain rule, you derivative of the outside times the derivative of the inside. So for this one, I would times by 2x. Only yours. E minus. Okay, no, I haven't even looked at math yet.
Obviously.
If you're lucky. Well, what's this week 6? I've got a 2-week turnaround, so that means I have to have it back to you by Friday next week. So you should get it back by Friday next week. I'll probably get it done this week if I can. But anyway, let's focus on the math for today. The reason I bring this up, guys, if I was then to integrate, this, I would need to undo everything I've done. So if I was to work backwards, the cos would turn back into a sine, and I'd also have to divide by the derivative of the inner function. Now, you're not going to see at this stage too much x squareds and things like that, but you will see the occasion like 3x or something, which is why I've given you the rule like so. Also, that's my original rule, and then that lines up with the the integral of sine ax plus b. It is recording.
Okay.
Sure it is. Guys, I really want to get through this math, so can we stop asking random questions, please? So if I have sine ax plus b, it will integrate to negative cos. The reason sine goes to negative cos is because if you start at cos, it goes to negative sine. So sine goes to cos when you're integrating, just because. It's the dumbest way to remember it, but it's the way I remember it. Every time you're integrating sine, it goes to negative cos. You also have to divide through by the derivative of the inner. If you were to differentiate inside the brackets, can you see that derivative would be a? That's all that there would be. So if that was like ax squared or something in there, it wouldn't be divided by a anymore. You'd have to still divide it by the derivative. Okay? And then the inside of the brackets don't change, and then we add plus c on the end. Whenever we're differentiating or integrating, the insides of brackets never change. They always just stay as is. So you would have noticed when we did chain rule initially, like if you had bracket to the power of 5, when you differentiate it, that bracket inside it always stays the same from integrating to differentiating. Cody?
It's a negative, you just swap it. So if it was a negative sine, ax plus b dx, would you make it just
positive? Yeah. So, sorry?
X cos. But where
1 over a.
Yeah.
Because we're dividing through by the derivative of the inner. Another way of saying divide by is saying times by 1 over. Just a different way of writing it. So you could also, if you wanted to, you could write this as negative cos ax plus b divided by a plus c if you wanted. Those two things are the same. Cos is exactly the same, except it goes to positive sign. So cos, when you're integrating, stays the same sign that it is. Yo.
The y dash equals does the same calculate the value of the
Indefinite integral? Nope. You can integrate a y function.
the what? What is that?
It's the
Why would you do
integral.
that? Do you ever do that? Roll of a normal
Capital.
and then what's the integral of that? Can be that.
Integrals is just like, it's just a process. So you could have like the 20th integral if you wanted to. There's ways of writing it, but we're never going to have to worry about that. So I wouldn't stress. So the integral will equal sine 3x plus pi on 4 dx. Now, it has used this language here, indefinite. There are two types of integrals, guys. There are definite and indefinite. Indefinite basically means it'll have plus c on the end. A definite integral is where you actually solve it. An definite integral is where you actually figure out what the integral is equal to. So you might find, that integral is equal to 5 or something. We will look at a definite integral today, just one. We're not going to look at how to solve them for a lesson or two, though. But I was looking at this earlier, and there is one in there. Okay. Yes. Capital just means the integral of. So you know how before I said you have f of x, you have f dash of x. If you integrate f dash of x, you get f of x. If you integrated f of x, you'd get capital F of x. So this is the integral of f of x dx. Okay, does sine change its sign when we integrate?
Yes.
It does become cos. Does it become negative or positive? Let's look at our rule. Sine becomes negative. So that will be negative cos. Do my brackets change inside? 3x plus pi on 4. I'll add my plus c in. Is there anything else I need to do? Divide by the derivative of the inner. Because if it was chain rule, we would be timesing by the derivative of the inner, and we got to undo that. So what is the derivative of my inner function? 3. So I'll just take that whole thing there, divide by 3.
So you do.
Generally, it'll just be the coefficient of x, but... Well, let's start speaking. Yep. Not too late. Ryland and Clarice. You gotta go to A block. You just really hate my classes, don't you guys? Okay. Let's do this next one, guys. So, the integral will be integral sine 1/4. I assume not. I don't know. She didn't say to bring you stuff, so I assume you'll be back. Dx. So when I integrate that, does my sign change its sign? It'll become negative cos 4x. Now I'm just going to go under there and chuck the 4 from... Can you see at the beginning we had a quarter in front of it? I'm just going to go ahead and put that quarter underneath. So put the 4 underneath. And then I've got to divide through by the derivative of the inner. What's the derivative of the inner? 4. So when I divide that by 4, because I've already got the fraction symbol there, I've just got to chuck another 4 underneath. So it'll end up being over 16, then plus c. Equals negative cos 4x over 16. plus c.
Okay, so the C is 7.
Yeah. Because the c is just some constant. Like I said, we have definite, indefinite things. I think I've mixed up my order here. I think I previously used to teach definite and indefinite first, but I just haven't here. But I will show you how to do an indefinite on this one. So did anyone need that anymore? Or are we good to move on? Good to move on? Sick. Oh my goodness, I've given you 3 signs in a row, haven't I? It's no good. Calculate the integral of that. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Oh no. Yeah, all right. Let's make it cos. So f of x, capital F of x, equals the integral of 2 cos 2x minus pi on 2. Now, dx. Does anyone remember, what does integrating something find mathematically? Area under a curve. And it is asked us to find the area between the x-axis and the function between 0 and pi on 4. So what we do, if we have bounds, if the function gives us bounds, we just chuck them on the integration symbol. What that tells me is that I'm integrating this function from 0 to pi on 4. That's all that means. Okay, so on the next one, let's integrate it. What is, I've lost my train of thought. What does cos differentiate to? Positive or negative? Positive. So we have 2 sine bracket. Does the bracket change? 2x minus pi on 2. What do I do? Anything else? Divided by 2. Plus c. And now, because I have those bounds on it, yeah, I will show you how to do it. We keep it in a set of brackets, and we write our bounds over on the right-hand side now. What those ones on the right-hand side mean is we're basically just going to sub them into our rule and then solve it. So what we do is we sub in our upper bound, and we sub in our lower bound, and we take those 2 answers away from each other. Equals sine of 2 times, the 2 on top and the 2 on bottom cancelled out. So sine of 2x minus pi on 2. But instead of x, what am I subbing in? My upper bound?
Yeah.
So pi on 4.
So,
Plus c. And then what we do is we subtract away the same thing. Sine 2. And then this time we sub in our lower bound. 0. Minus pi on 2. Plus c. If we solve this, what is 2 times pi on 4?
on
Pi on 2. What's pi on 2 minus pi on 2? Oops. Plus c. What's 2 times 0? 0. What's 0 minus pi on 2 or minus pi on 2? What is sine of negative 90 degrees? Sine 0 degrees.
1.
Sine of 0 is 0 because sine is our height. If we were to go down, it'd be negative 1. So minus Yeah, so sine of 0 is 0. What did I say minus sine of pi on 2 is? Minus pi on 2? -1 plus c. Now I'm leaving that second one in brackets for a reason that will hopefully be obvious in a moment. What do I do with that minus in front of the bracket?
Take it. You take the second bit.
Well, I've got to distribute that minus into the bracket because it's essentially -1 in front. So that would be 0 plus c plus 1 minus c. And the c's cancel. 1. And now, what did we say that we've just found? What type of number is that 1? It represents something physical, an area. What do we measure area in? Or if we have meters. We don't have a units here, so we're just going to say units squared. Now, like I said, I'm going to get more into that later on. Normally, I've shown it here. Normally, we don't bother with putting in a c if we have those bounds on it. Because every single time, as long as you do the math right, the c's are going to cancel out. So it doesn't matter what the constant of integration is for these ones. So you only need to worry about c if you don't have those bounds on it. But yeah, like I said, we'll talk about that more in a bit. Okay. We're going to solve these ones, guys. The only difference here is we're going to solve for that c value. So we're going to solve using the known points that the question has given us. So f of x equals the integral of cos 2x dx. Integral of cos
Is sine,
negative sine, positive sine,
sine 2x over 2.
over 2 plus c. And we want to sub in 1 comma pi on 4. Okay, so pi on 4 equals sine of 2. Wait, hold up. I did that back to front, didn't I? Pi on 4 comma 1. Does anyone remember what does sine of pi on 4 equal?
645.
It's 45 degrees, so what's that as an exact value? Sine 45 degrees. Root 2 on 2. Yeah. You can do it as you can do it as 1 over root 2, or you can do it as root 2 on 2.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, that's a good point. I missed that. So that would be then 2 times pi on 4 is pi on 2. Sine of pi on 2 is 90 degrees, which is 1, because 90 degrees is the top of the circle, so that's where the height is the biggest. That would be 1 on 2 plus c. So to solve for c, minus a half off both sides. C is 1/2. Therefore, f of x equals sine 2x on 2 plus 1/2. So that is the full integral. Goodness, we just keep going with the questions today, don't we? Are we ready to do the next one, guys? Not quite. Okay, let's do this one. F of x is just going to equal the integral of sine of x on 2 dx. What's the integral of sine? Negative cos. What's the derivative of my inner function? Yeah, but you're jumping a step ahead. What is the derivative of the inner function? Nope. Not 2. It's not negative 2.
Do you have to flip it?
What's the derivative of x on 2?
Minus
X on 2 is the same thing as a half x. So if the x disappears, what's left over? A half. So the derivative of x on 2 is a half. So I've got to divide by the derivative. So I'm dividing by a half, which is the same thing as timesing by 2. But I'll say divide by a half, and then plus c, which gives me minus 2 cos x on 2 plus c, because that divide by a half turns into times 2. Okay? Let's sub in our known point. Sub in 4/3 pi. What am I doing? 4/3 pi, comma 2. So 2 equals negative 2 cos 4/3 pi divided by 2. Plus c. What is 4/3 pi divided by 2? If I have 4 of something and I divide it by 2, how many are left? 2. So it would be 2/3 pi. Cos 2/3 pi, what's that in terms of angles? So 2/3 pi, what is that in degrees? First. You guys stress me out. What is pi on 3?
45, 60.
60, because pi is 180, divided by 3 is 60, times it by 2, 120. So if we draw our unit circle, we're sitting over here at 120 degrees. And we're talking about cos, so we're talking about the length of that. Is that going to be positive or a negative? Negative. So cos of 2 pi on 3 is just going to equal negative cos of what angle? 60, or pi on 3. And I'm going to regret asking, but what is cos of 60? It's one of the easy ones. A half. So negative a half. So I can replace 2 equals negative 2 times negative 1/2 plus c. What's negative 2 times negative a half? What's okay, let's bring this back to year 8. What's 2 times a half? So what's 2 times negative a half? So what's negative 2 times negative a half? positive 1. So C equals 1, which gives us my original function has to have been negative 2 cos x on 2 plus 1. Okay, one last one, guys, and then we'll get on to some revision or some practice for you guys. Given that f dash of x equals cos x minus cos 2x, and at x equals 0, the function is equal to 8, determine my original function. So this one's easy. My original function x is going to equal the integral of cos of x minus cos of 2x dx, because we're differentiating with respect to x. What is the integral of cos x? And then I got to divide through by the derivative of the inner, which is 1, so I can just ignore it because there's no meaningful derivative there. What is the derivative of negative cos 2x? Positive or negative? Positive, because it is technically negative, but there's already a negative there. They become a positive. Inside the brackets don't change, but is there a derivative this time? 2. So I divide by 2 plus c. Then I just need to sub in my known point. So sub in 0, 8. So we have 8 equals negative sine of 0 plus sine of 2 times 0 over 2 plus c.
Negative sign.
No.
But then it would become sine x over 1 plus sine 2x over 2. Just take it.
Kurt lied to me. Or maybe it was Alyssa. Let's split the difference and say Elizabeth. Sorry, guys. So, yeah. Sorry, so it should be minus in the middle. What is sine of 0? 0. What is sine of 2 times 0 over 2? Still 0. 8 equals 0 minus 0 plus c. C equals 8. Therefore, f of x equals minus... Sorry, that should be plus. And that one was a minus. Equals... Yeah. Sine of x minus sine of 2x. Because cos integrates to positive sine. Plus 8. Noted. And then I'll get you to have a go at those problems on page 359. And I